Ko te amorangi ki mua, ko te hāpai o ki muri. Kia tau I ona mana ki tanga ki runga ki tēnā o tātai. He honore, he karoria, he mau ngā rongo ki runga ki te mata o te whenua. He whakaaro pai ki ngā tangata katoa. Aro haina ngā teina me ngā tuakana e noho nei I rungi te whakaaro ko tahi pai mai.
Please be seated. E ngā mana, e ngā reo, e ngā iwi o ngā haue whā, tēnei aku mihi mahana ki o koutou. Nau mai, hara mai, ki te whare nei, te whare o te kāwana tianara ki Whanganuiatara. Distinguished guests, it is my pleasure to welcome you all to Government House Wellington for today's investiture ceremony. I'd like to specifically acknowledge the Honourable Penny Simmons, Minister of the Crown, Mr Joe Harawira, our kaumātua, Mrs Rānui Ngārimu, our kuia. Tēnā koutou katoa. Hosting investiture ceremonies is one of the most important duties that I perform on behalf of His Majesty, the King of New Zealand. I'm delighted to bring together such an extraordinary group of New Zealanders. You have each brought pride and a greater sense of well-being to Aotearoa New Zealand through your outstanding achievements and your service to our communities. On behalf of all New Zealanders, I extend my sincerest thanks to you for your contributions. After each recipient is honoured, I invite you to join with me in congratulating them. Ms. Catriona McLeod will now summon the recipients and read their citations.
Your Excellency, to receive the insignia of an Officer of the New Zealand Order of Merit, Ms. Tanya Ashkin of Wellington for services to sculpture, silversmithing and jewellery. Tanya Ashkin emigrated to New Zealand from the United Kingdom in 1963, having studied silversmithing in London. Born deaf, she was the youngest person to acquire a silversmithing hallmark at the age of 13 in the early 1950s. She came to the fore in New Zealand as a jeweller and sculptor in the 1960s. The New Zealand Arts Council commissioned her to produce a pendant for HRH Princess Anne on her 1970 tour of New Zealand. Her work is represented in public galleries around the country, as well as universities, courthouses, civic buildings, churches and parks, in addition to several works on display in Australia and China. Ms. Ashkin's abstract sculpture Albatross was unveiled on the Wellington waterfront in 1986 and led to the creation of the Wellington Sculpture Trust. Ms. Tanya Ashkin, please come forward. Mr. Scratch Jensen of Porerua for services to wildlife conservation. Scratch Jensen has held roles with the New Zealand Wildlife Service and Department of Conservation, DOC, since 1979, recently advising on the predator-free 2050 national vision. He initiated research to protect Rotorua's declining kokako populations. He developed techniques to capture and relocate kokako to predator-free islands. He was involved with pest removal from Mokoia Island on Lake Rotorua, later translocating North Island robins, sattlebacks, and brown kiwi. He assisted with pest removal from Motohora Island and reintroduction of threatened species. He provided innovative leadership as Kokapo Recovery Group Leader for DOC. As Kiwi Recovery Group Leader, he was heavily involved with North Island brown kiwi being introduced to Wellington and the Capital Kiwi project. Mr. Jensen helped design and implement the predator-proof fence for the Cape Kidnappers Sanctuary. Mr. Scratch Jensen, please come forward. Mrs. Trish Lindsay of Invercargill for services to netball and governance. Trish Lindsay was a founding director of the Southern Teamco Board for Southern Sting Netball, which helped revitalise netball in the South Island, and a director of the ILT Stadium Board, established for the build of a multi-purpose sports and leisure facility in Invercargill. She was trustee and deputy chair of the Community Trust of Southland, and as a founding trustee and secretary of Shakespeare in the Park Trust. She's been a trustee of the Southland Art Foundation, overseeing and growing a collection of public art works. She became a member of the Museum Governance Group to upgrade the museum. Mrs. Lindsay was a board member and is now trustee of Southland Disability Enterprises, a director of Invercargill Rotary, and an executive member of the Southland Medical Foundation Council. Mrs. Trish Lindsay, please come forward. Your Excellency, to receive the insignia of a member of the New Zealand Order of Merit, Mrs. Diane John of Picton for services to ornithology. Diane John has been a member of the Ornithological Society of New Zealand, now Birds NZ, for several years as a core member of her local branch and former committee member. She helped with the Society's monthly bird counts on Lake Grassmere. She was the regional recorder, collecting data, entering it into the national databases. She has counted shorebirds during river surveys and helped with various bird banding projects. She was a member of the team who monitored the success of the Maud Island Fluttering Shearwater translocation. Through Wildlife Management International, Mrs. John has assisted with several monitoring and banding projects and translocations. Mrs. Diane John, please come forward. Ms. Lorraine Mens of Auckland for services to education and philanthropy. Lorraine Mens led the Committee of Civic Leadership Programme Future Auckland Leaders and was the co-founder and chief executive of the Springboard Trust, which works within the education sector to transform schools by developing individuals and teams' strategic leadership. Through Springboard programs, principals and leaders receive voluntary coaching from private and public sector leaders. Ms. Mens is currently Chief Executive of the Hugh Green Foundation and established the Education Partnership and Innovation Trust, bringing together philanthropic funders with social impact organisations and schools to tackle inequity in education. She also supports education initiatives on the board of Te Kete Hono and as chair of the Brian Wilkinson Charitable Trust. Ms. Lorraine Mens, please come forward. Ms. Morin Morris of Whangarei for services to nursing. Morin Morris began nursing in 1966 and served the Northland and Auckland communities until her retirement in 2023. She's been involved with organisations devoted to the support of cancer patients and their families, palliative care, those dealing with loss and grief, the establishment of specialist care clinical standards, and the professional development of nurses. She helped to create and expand the Cancer Nurses section of the New Zealand Nurses Organisation. She was instrumental in establishing the Cancer Nurses Knowledge and Skills Framework. She was a foundation member of the Jim Carney Cancer Treatment Centre. Ms. Morris has held numerous volunteer roles with a range of organisations. Ms. Morin Morris, please come forward. Your Excellency, to receive the King's Service Medal, Mrs. Janice Bernett of Prebleton for services to the community. Janice Bernett is chairperson of the Lincoln and Districts Community Care Association, LDCC. She led the project to create new premises for LDCC and initiated the funding and construction of the Rata Foundation Wing. She founded the Spring Fling, an annual garden party, raising more than $200,000 for LDCC. She has worked to ensure LDCC can continue offering its Meals on Wheels service and has sought to expand other services offered. She was involved in netball umpiring and served as president of Canterbury Netball Umpires. Mrs. Burnett was District Commissioner for the Girl Guides in the Malvern District. Mrs. Janice Bernett, please come forward. Ms. Katarina KW of Tokomaru Bay for services to women and the civil construction industry. Ms. Katarina KW, Ngāti Porou, Rongamaiwa Hine, Ngāti Kaungunu ki Heratonga, founded Taira Whiti Contractors on the East Coast. A third of the company's 38 staff are women, and she's provided training to build capability in local staff over recruiting experienced workers. She's been involved with Te Puni Kokori's cadetship program, supporting development of permanent Māori staff into higher skilled roles. She's an ambassador for women in infrastructure for Connexus and ran a Girls with High-Vis event in Ruatoria. Her company supported recovery following Cyclone Gabrielle in 2023. Ms. Kaiwai leads an initiative that provides 490 healthy school lunches daily. Ms. Katarina Kaiwai, please come forward. Mr. Grant Smith of Carterton for services to the community. Grant Smith has been a member of Carterton Lions Club for 30 years, including 2 years as president, and is a life member of the Lloyd Morgan Charitable Trust. He's driven several successful community fundraising campaigns. He and his wife, Heather Smith, supported a range of community groups through their local rural supply business. Together, they convened the Carterton Daffodil Festival, raising funds for the Carterton Lions Club and Carterton District Council. Mr. Smith was a Carterton District Councillor and chaired the Water Race Committee. He is a life member and former president of the Carterton Golf Club. Mr. Grant Smith, please come forward. Mrs. Heather Smith of Carterton for services to the community. Heather Smith and her husband Grant Smith established and ran a rural supply business in Carterton through which they supported numerous community groups. Together they convened the Carterton Daffodil Festival, raising funds for the Carterton Lions Club and District Council. She's had a leading role in the Cancer Society's transport activities as a volunteer driver. She is volunteer chairperson and office coordinator of the Community Budgeting Trust Wairarapa. She was treasurer of the Napier Lioness Club. She volunteered for Hawke's Bay Lifeline call centre. Mrs. Smith is secretary-treasurer of the New Zealand Ground Spread Association Central District Branch. Mrs. Heather Smith, please come forward. Your Excellency, the investiture has concluded.
New Zealand's honours system is our highest public affirmation of outstanding individual achievement. It reinforces those things that make our society better: service, manaakitanga, and the pursuit of excellence. To our recipients, it has been a privilege to hear your stories. You have each used your talents and abilities to improve the lives of fellow New Zealanders. In doing so, you embody the sentiment expressed by the Roman philosopher Cicero when he said, "Not for ourselves alone are we born." I urge recipients to wear your insignia with pride at every opportunity, knowing that you inspire others by your example. On behalf of the King of New Zealand and all New Zealanders, I congratulate you on your achievements, and I thank you once again for your service to our country. Kia ora, e huhi mai nei tātou I tēnei ahiahi. Now you will see on the back of your program the words to the national anthem in te reo and in English. I now invite you to stand with me and join in singing them.